Welcome back. Well, yes, to give us their perspective on how we've fared, how security agencies have fared in terms of their responsibility, what have we gotten right, how do we ensure we do better than we were, the capacity that we've got. We've got two gentlemen joining us this morning. Major General Henry Ayola is a former commander, Operation Safe Haven, joining us from our studios in Abuja. And then we also do have Mr. Fatai Owosheni, former Commissioner of Police for Benue and Lagos States. Gentlemen, good morning. Compliment of the season. Thank you both for joining us today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain, and
thank you, viewers. Good morning.
All right, so I'm going to start from Abuja. Now, yes, we do know there are huge questions when it comes to what are we doing? Do people feel a lot secure? And this is usually in spite of all that is being done. But we know that no matter how much has been done by security agencies, so if there's some sort of incident, chances are that it will overshadow what might have been done. But, General, if I could ask you, from your impression, having been there, and then you know the measures, the activities, what is being put in, the results we're getting, where are we getting it wrong?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we should start by, first of all, thanking God for the year 2020. It's been a challenging year, or shall we say an interesting year for the entire world. And Nigeria has had a fair share of that challenge. Except, of course, perhaps our local security environment has not been very helpful in helping us to deal with those challenges, particularly the security environment. And so, considering that, I think we have not done too badly. We have not done badly at all, I should say. In the sense that within the limits of what is available to the security forces and the entire security agencies and paramilitary services, I think we should give them a pat on the back to encourage them to do better. Of course, you must note that a number of things happened that are attempted to demoralize some of these services, even though it's an unintended collateral damage and effect, but it's also our duty as people of Nigeria to encourage our security forces, boost their morale so that they can do more. But of course, talking about how to do better going forward, I think that's where we should really focus our attention. The real issues are not about shooting blame bullets as to who has done what or who has not done what, but rather how can we improve on what we have had so far. In the military, there is what we call after-action review, or we call it a critique or workshop. That's after every exercise or operation, we sit down and look back and say, what did we do well? How can we do it better? What did we not do well? How can we correct it? I think that's the kind of thing that we should do as a nation. And that brings me first and foremost to the fact that the security situation itself has brought to the fore the importance of restructuring the nation. Okay, I mean, you call it devolution of power, responsibilities, resources, or rejigging, reorganizing the nation, all for the better. And of course, there's a groundswell of consensus right now that is obvious to everybody. We have come to the same page. So it's no longer an issue of preaching restructuring to anybody. It's now a matter of how do we set about it? Where do we start? Which sectors should we look at first? You know, and I think where we should even start is the necessary changes that we need to make as a people, starting with our hearts and minds, our attitudes, our paradigms to life. A whole lot has to change in that direction, because a lot of that is responsible for our problem-solving approaches, for example. Sometimes our problem-solving approach is either dismissive or divisive. Sometimes it's evasive. Sometimes it's spontaneous and not well thought out. At other times, it's simply simplistic. And at best, anything else but altruistic. So we find with that kind of setting, we're either dodging the issues or not really giving a decisive and rigorous engagement with the challenges and the issues. So that's where I think we should start.
Okay.
And I think the next place there is for us.
Well, General, just hang on a moment. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to you to shed more light on that. But let's bring in Mr. Owoshin here on the same matter. Well, speaking about our approach, the kind of results we're getting, of course, you know that there are more questions than answers at the moment. So tell us, from your perspective, how are we faring in terms of the results that we're getting?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain, and good morning, viewers at home. Like my brother there had said, it's been a very unusual time. How have we fared? Let's rate the performance of the security agencies, a little bit average. And why I said a little bit average is that in 2020 that we're living will probably not repeat itself probably in another 90, 100 years. Historians have said that when situations like this, it's a situation where you have a pandemic that, ravaged the whole world. And of course, pandemics like these, I think the major last one was the Spanish flu, which was about 100 years ago. And for us in Nigeria, after the pandemic, the COVID-19, we also have had the NSAS thing. Those two, things that had happened had actually, overwhelmed security agencies. And in an unusual time like this, a whole lot of things do happen. And that is exactly what we've faced in Nigeria. These are things that were not envisaged. We didn't plan for them. And the two, incidents that had happened had changed a whole lot of things. And it has also changed the way that security issues were handled. My friend there said, we must, still encourage the security agencies. We must encourage our operatives, because these are things that were not really envisaged. And they have tried their possible best within the limitations that they have to see how to address the security situations that we have we had in the country in this year.
All right. Well, Mr. Owoshin, just one moment, if I can, if we can explore further, just a little further. I'll take the same issue to Major General Ayola later. When you say we didn't envisage the issues, I'm a little concerned about that, because the first time we heard about this coronavirus disease was in November of last year. And then in December, it got worse. And in January, it began to spread to various parts of the world. By February, we already had our first case. So essentially, we knew it was coming. So if we were to do a critical assessment of before COVID, COVID era, and after COVID, would you say that we didn't really know, or shouldn't we have known, the likely security threats that we would have as a result of a shutdown of an economy where most of the citizens earn daily living?
Let me say that no one expected that it was going to take the turn that it eventually took. When it started, for example, for us in Nigeria, as of January, we're still looking at, okay, is this going to be real? It took some time before we started taking certain actions. And of course, because we didn't really look at it that it was going to take the dimension that it took, we were just like, okay, maybe it would come and it will go. And of course, people started losing jobs. Business, started slowing down. And a whole lot of people were not now, really getting things to do. And it put people right there on the streets. And before you knew it, the EndSARS thing came. And it was actually going to be a class war. The EndSARS thing, no one knew it was going to take the dimension it took. And it got our security agencies, panicking. I must say that, and we must accept that. And that was why most of the measures that were taken, most of the steps that were taken, I would say that we were panic-stricken. They were taken under panicky situations. That was why most of the steps we took remain uncoordinated. And no one knew at a point that it was going to turn into a class war. And that was why I said we didn't really envisage it. We didn't know that it was going to take the dimension it took. And we must learn lessons from this. Everyone has to be effective. It's not only in Nigeria. Yeah. It's also globally, even in some of those developed countries, you will find out that situations arose that weren't expected, and everybody was caught panicking.
Okay. Well, Major General Ayola, let me also ask you the same question, because if you would agree with what Mr. Owosheni is saying, a good number of people would say that's a failure of intelligence. We have seen the trends of spontaneous riots all over the world and how they usually end up. So for us to say that we didn't know it was going to take that dimension, some would say it's a failure of intelligence. Now, looking at what, you security experts call security threat assessments, some would have expected that, okay, after a lockdown of personal economies of people who are largely sustenance businesses, one would have expected that there is a likelihood that these things might happen. For us to say that we weren't aware that these things could happen, a number of people would say intelligence failed. We didn't quite assess the threats well enough. How would you respond to them?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayo. That's an incisive question. But again, there are some basic things. The fact that we have neglected this security sector for a long while, and you cannot overnight improve on your state of readiness. If your state of readiness before a challenge, certainly we have a very serious impact on your ability to respond to that challenge. And perhaps that explains the kind of response and reactions that we were able to put up. But having said that, I'm aware that our security services and intelligence services are filled with very competent people, and I've operated with some of them, and I know oftentimes, in fact, most of the time, the buck stops at the political strategic level. I see a number of intelligence reports written by the intelligence community, and it's left for the political leaders and masters to determine the actions as recommended. The intelligence community has a very strong role to play in agenda setting, by the intelligence that they put up. But then, that's how far they can go. The actions that are often recommended, the bulk of that stops at the political master's table. So, and that's where it must be a bottom-up system and top-down system so that there is everyone playing his own role at his own level. That's the only way that you can preempt things, even when you have seen them ahead. That's the way you can be in a position to give a robust engagement in tackling such problems. And that's why we talk about a wholesale, holistic restructuring of the system, because it's more or less an inherent and systemic problem that we're dealing with. And it cuts across virtually all sectors. It's not just the security sector, where the system itself is neither designed nor organized to function optimally, where you have a system that is kind of contrived and skewed against itself. A system that, is inherently dysfunctional. I mean, we cannot be doing the things that make for failure and be expecting success. It's an absurdity of a kind. It's a particularity or contradiction that we are dealing with.
What level,
and
Major
that's why
General?
we emphasize the need
yes,
for all of
one
us
moment.
to come.
On that issue that you have just raised now about the dysfunctional systems, at what level are you alluding that this is happening? Is it at the federal level or at the state level? And in what security agencies, if you can be specific, are these dysfunctionalities obvious?
It's very good. Thank you very much. You've introduced a concept there, the concept of a system. That's what we call system of systems, which means it's a chain. And it's something that should work seamlessly, either from bottom up. If you take it from the level of the units, the wards, the local government, the states, to the federal, whatever it is that we design as a security architecture must come that way and be linked one to another seamlessly. So in a case where you have even just a single link that is faulty or that is ineffective, it will affect the whole chain. That's why you talk about the weakest link in the chain. And it's so difficult for you to have one singular sector so perfect when all the others are not doing well. It's very rare to find that. So that's why we talk about a wholesale restructure of the system where we can come together and sit down. I lead a movement called Restructure Actualization Movement. And that's what we're advocating right now. Let's start from the things that we all agree upon. I mean, we've deceived ourselves for too long. We've been living in denial for too long. It's obvious now, and I think the groundswell of consensus is coming out to show you that everybody is ready now. I think we've done enough of denying the truth. So it's time to face the facts. The chickens have come home to roost. So let's all get together and say, look, how best do we do this? One of the problems, again, is that as a nation, we have not learned how to put up our collective best in solving any problem. Those who are in government think that they must be the one to solve it. And those of us who are followers, most of the time, we think that those who are in government are like our candidates and we are examiners and we are marking them, rather than seeing it as an all-stakeholder approach where those of us outside government can bring in what we have and those in government can take full advantage of the private sector, the public sector, harnessing all the resources in the nation, human resources, the intellectual property in the nation, to solve any particular problem. So at any time, we are putting forward our best foot. That is something we need to learn as a nation. So that it's not a matter of we versus them. It's a matter of we as a nation trying to solve our national problems. Because, so somebody else is there today. It could be your turn tomorrow. So it's not a matter of who is there now. And we make it look as if we must put all the blame on those who are there. The time for shooting blame bullets have passed.
Okay.
It's a time for collective action.
Let's bring in
effort to solve the problem of the nation.
Mr. Osho needs to equally respond to the same matter because there was this research findings, a report that was published. I think they called it Civil Unrest Index Assessment. They identified 37 countries. It was done by various Maplecraft. They identified 37 countries, including Nigeria, as to countries that will face civil unrest as a result of the COVID-19 fallout. And then they said that the post-economic recovery, from how we handle all of those, was going to determine how, those are managed. But that came as far back as July, way before, we had the several unrest. And then when you say that we didn't see that coming, what's happening? Are we dropping the ball? Because we know that, several people have several history as to how intelligence was very key. They were usually spot on. They could see things and nip them in the bud before we even thought that it was going to happen. What's going on? How come we didn't see these things coming?
Let me say, we've had that systemic failure all along. The issue of, leveraging on intelligence report, it's been a challenge to us in this country for a very long time. I wouldn't say that, yes, we can say that in Nigeria we had that problem. But when you look at the whole situation globally, even the countries that have, their intelligence, entity working very well, still had certain issues that also got them panicky. It's not just about Nigeria, but with us, we've all been a country that don't take institutional memory into consideration. And if we've been doing that to say that, okay, this thing had happened before, because nothing happened that has not happened before. It's just about being proactive. When I started, I'd said that we didn't actually expect those things to happen. You look at it in Nigeria, there are countries that have the social security measures. Even when we now try to help them to do what they were doing in terms of giving palliatives, you find out that even when we started, it wasn't properly structured. It wasn't properly coordinated. And we've always had security issues done in a disjointed manner. You take it from the security institution, even our people. We've been a people that don't realize that we have neighbors around that look at our lifestyle, that look at things that we do that would probably come back to come and hunt us. And that's
my apologies, but we need to go to break. It's a commercial one, but we'll come back to you to continue your train of thought in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Mr. Osheni, please go ahead with your thoughts.
Like I was saying, we must agree that we're a people and we're a country that don't actually believe in processes. We've always done our things using the fire brigade approach. In those other countries, in some other climes, they have it already as part of their own processes and part of their system that you have the social security system. We were caught panicking. We started the palliative thing. Even when we started, how to actually give out palliatives was a challenge. And if you look across the country, different states, approach the issue in different ways. And that is to say that even before now, before the COVID-19 came to teach us, the hard way, we had that problem. We were grappling with the issue of, the declining security situation. We've been facing the issue of the insurgency in certain part of the country. We've been facing the issue of kidnapping, gangsterism in some other part of the country, even before the COVID-19 came up. And we were grappling with that. We've not even really come to a situation where we can say that we're addressing these issues in a proper way. And this pandemic now came, NSAS came in. It was at first being trivialized, as we've always done in the country. So the security institutions, when they were coming up with the way they will react, they had the challenge of even the political leadership, where it's not as if they were thinking the same way the security institutions were thinking. So some of those things were just put on the table of the security institutions. And before they can really wake up to the reality of things, it has gone that worse, that made them to be doing things in a way that I would say remain uncoordinated and all those things. And as a people as well, it was when we're faced with this that we realized that, okay, you have a next door neighbor that looks at you driving your fine cars out of the house, out of your house, and your next door neighbor see the way you are living in affluence while he's hungry. So you now have a situation where people now realize that, oh, maybe I should even help my next door neighbor. So when you look at the whole thing put together, it's not just about the security institutions, but as a people as well, we had got lessons to learn from what has happened in 2020. And we shouldn't just stop at that. We are a country, we are a people that when you even do intelligence report and you say, okay, this is likely to happen in another 3, 4, 5 years, people will say you are a prophet of doom. Even as simple as when we have events, when you say, oh, okay, there could be stampede. What is your evacuation model that you want to use? People will say, God forbid, it's not going to happen. So we've been living like that. So this has really taught us a lesson that we must always be proactive. We mustn't just be that lackadaisical to say, oh, God forbid, bad thing. Even the second wave of the COVID thing now, you see the way we're approaching it. Some people had come up to say that as of the time the pandemic started, we would have, shut our border earlier before the whole thing, hit us that hard. So that is why I'm saying that we were caught panicky. What do we do? Should we continue to do lamentations? It is a period where we must go back to the drawing board. We must also, take all those concepts of best practices. After action review, what did we do wrong? What did we do right? Those things that we did wrong, how can we really, perfect them and come to live as a country that believes in processes, not fire brigade approach.
All right, thank you. Major General Ayola, this one is for you. What we are doing here is trying to review the year 2020, especially from the security angle. And if you look at it from the beginning of the year until this moment, even from way back, our security issues have evolved from one thing to another, have pretty much metamorphosed from one thing into another over time. And the targets have been different from time to time. They have evolved also. And it is irrespective of gender, irrespective of age, irrespective of economy. Some of the time we have had insurgency, we have had terrorism, and we have had those who kidnap people more for economic gains. Now, for all of these things that have happened, how would you assess our preparedness? Did we know that we would have these things happen to us? Or did they just happen to us, without us knowing that they would happen? Again, of course, naturally people would say that would be a failure of intelligence. And if we knew it was going to happen, what would you say is the level of our proactiveness as opposed to being reactive?
Okay, I didn't hear the last part of what you said, Ayo.
Well, I don't know how much of it you heard, but the summary
I
of
had
it is...
you up to what will happen.
Yeah. The question that I would... The cap of the question is, would you say, if you take a look at all of the things that have happened over the year in terms of security, would you say that we have been significantly proactive as opposed to being reactive?
Okay, thank you very much. Judging from the list you made, the different threats and security challenges we've been dealing with, you find that some of them have been on for upward of 10 years. Okay, so, they are not, we have been engaging them. I mean, if you take the insurgency and terrorism, hostage taking, kidnapping, gangsterism that was mentioned earlier, if you take the issue of drug abuse, the issue of herders, farmers clashes, and, a lot of these have been there all along. And then what has happened is that they've been exacerbated. They've come to a head that's why, in fact, a lot of them are now coming to light. They've been there. Some of them have been there underground, happening sporadically in pockets here and there. And so perhaps they didn't get the national attention all along. But now that they've gotten that attention, so talking about whether we've been handling them proactively or not, security challenges and issues are fluid globally. You will notice that since the end of the Cold War, and a lot of non-state actors have emerged on the global scene. So the issue of terrorism has become a global issue. And all of that, of course, there was the book written by Samuel Huntington where he talked about the clash of civilizations and the remaking of world order. He had written this book as early as mid-90s, looking forward and seeing that the conflicts in the future will be along the fault lines of differences in culture, civilization, and all of that. And that's what more or less have been playing out. So globally, the global community will not, I would not say the global community is not sufficiently aware. But of course, the nature of conflicts will always determine the reaction that you will get. You will also notice that up until then, most conflicts have been the conventional type. But with the emergence of non-state actors and all of these other factors, there have been a kind of, shift to asymmetric warfare, or what I call hybrid warfare, where you have a little of the conventional, a little of guerrilla warfare, a little of revolutionary warfare, and a little of asymmetric warfare, all merged together. That's what we call hybrid warfare. And so, of course, the security forces too must, accordingly up their games to match these emerging, challenges. The contemporary challenges and the emerging challenges have gone out of the scope of what most nation militaries have trained for in the past. So the task now is for the security agencies and services to always be ahead of the enemy, ahead of the adversary, in getting ready to meet those challenges. And that's where the real challenge is for them. And of course, they can do that as much as they have the requisite equipment to train appropriately. Training is a function of equipment. If you don't have equipment, you can do all the training you like, but you cannot train on what you don't see or what you don't have.
Let me ask a little bit on that training component.
Because military technology is also evolving like other technologies.
Now, about this part of the training for security services, because time and again we hear the complaint that people don't volunteer information to them. They need information to succeed. It's a lifeblood of so many successes with security agencies the world over. But there seems to be something ingrained in the training of security agencies. Why is it that the relationship between themselves and the citizens is usually very hostile? They're always brutalizing them, the ones who are in the front lines, who they relate to on a daily basis. At any slightest incident, that usually happens. We see with cadets from military, the police. Why is that always the case?
Chamberlain, sincerely for me, I would not generalize it that way. Because if you look at the percentage of these incidents you have mentioned, it's not even up to 1% of those forces you are talking about. There will always be bad eggs in any organization. Well, what is important is for those organizations to have a punitive system, sanctions that are swift and sure, such that it will become a deterrent to those who are found, guilty of such offenses. Once that is in play, it happens in every. I mean, you saw how many soldiers, American soldiers and other country soldiers, who misbehaved in Iraq during both the Gulf War and the Iraq War. You have them everywhere. What is important is to ensure the leadership of each service and force, to ensure that they deal decisively to serve as a deterrent with those who are found culpable of such offenses. Okay, and once that is done, of course, it will always serve to check and reduce such incidents to the minimum. And that's what I can say about that. It's not like it's the order of the day. It's not like the majority of the people are doing it. No, not at all.
No, I'm talking about...
You saw during the NSAS last one we had, you saw the military officer, I think it was a brigadier general somewhere in the east, who were using very pragmatic approach in solving the problem right there on the spot.
Yeah, but they'll tell you that that's just one.
A police officer from...
Isn't that 0.01%?
And all of that. And you saw the way he took charge of that problem. There are fine officers like that.
Nobody is saying that there are not. No, I'm talking about the people that the citizens relate to it on a daily basis out there on the streets. In fact, let me take it to Mr. Osheni. Now, the same scenario, in fact, he did reference the NSAS. That was largely the reason why you had a lot of that protest. So what is it with those who they relate to on a regular basis with Nigerians? Why are those actions always like that?
Let me say that we are a nation and we're people living in denial. If you look at the whole thing, judging by narratives that come from the government, that come from the people, we've even not learned a lesson. It's not just about the security agencies. They should be talking over people because we are quick to do a comparison. The way we are is the way the other people are. In some other climes, people buy into the laws that are made and they are part of it. And they, on their own, feel that they must obey the law. But we are a different people. We must first take it from that. We've always talked about how to reform the security institutions. We must also get the people reformed. The value system is no more. You have a situation where people think when laws are made, that is just made for government. You have a situation where when you are confronting certain situations, people would challenge you to say that, is there a law that has forbid that? You have a situation where it's violence that is the order of the day. When you have such situations, you cannot just separate the security institutions and the security agencies. If you have situations where you are going to confront, miscreants, gangsters, and what you see is that they throw, stones at you. They have probably acid and things that can injure the security institutions, what you will expect, the reaction you will expect, will also be violence. It's violence that begets violence. So as a people, we must change. Chamberlain and all of you that are in the studio, I think there was a time that you brought Governor Hambode. I don't know whether it's Channels or TVC. And the question was asked to say that, we are being harassed when we stop in traffic and buy things. And the governor then, Hambode said, look, the law is that you that patronize the motorcycles that ply and operate on prohibited areas, you are equally guilty. You that patronize street hawkers of the streets when you are in traffic, you are equally guilty as per the law. And everyone in the studio laughed and said, oh, is that? We didn't know. So we're quick to say that we are ignorant of the laws. We have this syndrome in Nigeria where everyone is a big man. Even if it's a messenger working for a big man in the house, he has assumed the toga of a big man. We don't look at it as we must obey laws. And of course, when the laws are made as well, we don't sell it in a way that people will have a buy-in and, of course, comply voluntarily. So when you have situations like that, there is no way, a reason you will not
Mr.
have
Osheni,
such,
just one moment. In order to make
Yeah.
progress on this issue that you have raised, quite significant, I must say, but how do we progress from here, given that, as you well know, the trust quotient between the people and the security operatives is greatly depleted? Going forward, how do we begin to address this?
You say the way we will address it is that as a people, we must change. There must be a kind of national rebirth. We must change orientation. Who are the people that go into the security agencies? The people themselves. You take people on the street, you put them in the police, you put them in the military. They are the same people that immediately they wear uniform. People think that the uniform is an instrument of oppression. They don't believe that it's a service to humanity. So you would not just blame the institutions. We must blame ourselves. And when you are taking people into those institutions as well, everybody will attest that, they are good people. But immediately they finish their training and they wear the uniform, they think that they have the power. That is why you have proliferation of uniform in this country. Everyone wants to form one corps or one this or one that. And immediately they finish. They don't even know what it is all about. What you see them is people wearing all sort of ranks, all sort of uniform, all sort of boots, and they think that they have the authority. And where are they coming from? From the same society that we are saying that is being oppressed. The people that were oppressed yesterday will become the oppressor of tomorrow. So we must change our orientation when it comes to that. If we don't do that as a people and we continue to put the blame on the institutions, we would not go anywhere. And of course, the leadership must take it that we have a problem. We've not even realized that we have a problem. And that is why you see all sorts of narratives. We govern by deceit and all those things. So if you govern by deceit, what you will have is that, because that is to say that you have not realized that there's a problem. We have a problem as a nation, and we must face the problem as a nation. There must be a national rebirth, that everyone will know that we have an obligation. As the Constitution says that the government has the primary responsibility for security and welfare of the people, the Constitution also says that as a people, you are obligated on certain things. We don't think of the obligations we have. Everyone just go to the government to say, oh, it's the government. Who are the government? Who put the government people there? The people that are governing us. Even look at the answers. The people are saying the youths, the youths, the youths, the youths. Who are the youths? They are the same people that are in the National Assembly. They are the same people that are in the State House of Assemblies who voted for them. We are the same people that collect money to put them there. Ahead of 2023, we must be talking of rule of law. We must be looking at those all those provisions of the Constitution. I think in Chapter 2.
Pardon me, let me take this to Major General Ayola because we're winding down now. Now, according to the World Poverty Clock report, Nigeria has the largest number of people, of poor people in sub-Saharan Africa. 105 million people said to be living in extreme poverty. Now, that is huge. And then poverty will always play a role in some of these scenarios as they plan themselves out. Now, moving forward, do you think we have learned the right lessons in terms of our readiness, the preparedness of the security agencies, how to respond and conduct ourselves moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, Chamberlain. Again, that's a very good question. I was going ahead of you, ab initio, talking about lessons learned. And we talked about after-action review and all of that. Yeah, I think we can improve on our, so far, on what we have done in that area. Not just learning the lessons, but applying the lessons learned to update and upgrade our systems. I mean, it's no use learning some lessons without applying them. Because if you learn lessons and they don't show up in your subsequent outing, let's take an example. The kidnapping of school children. We saw 59 boys who were killed when a school was attacked in Buniyadi. We saw the 2014 one in Chibok. We saw the girls in Dapchi, and then this last one in Kankara. You will notice that the same fog of figures has showed up in all of these 4 incidents. So you will then ask yourself, did we not learn anything from those previous ones? Well, we are, the one figure is being thrown by these, and at the end, look at the Kankara one. I mean, an authority told us 333 boys were still being searched for. But at the end, when they were brought back, we are told that they are 344. All of these figures playing around. So the question you ask yourself, have we not learned anything from the previous ones? How are the schools keeping the nominal rolls of their students? I mean, will a school not know how many students it has? And if so number are missing, I mean, if an incident happened and thereafter, after the incident, you call a roll of the students, you should be able to count and know exactly how many people are missing, how many students are missing. So it appears either we are not learning sufficient lessons or we are not applying the lessons learned. And I think that's one area going forward in the new year. We must challenge ourselves to begin to do something about that.
A good place to let it
go.
go.
There are many lessons we have learned from even our own experience locally and the experiences of other nations.
All right, that's what we have
to be able to improve the system.
General, we had to let it go at that point. Major General Henry Ayola, former Commander, Operation Safe Haven, is the National Chairman, Restructure Actualization Movement. We've also had Mr. Fatai Owoshini, former Commissioner of Police from Lagos and Benue States. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed, and compliments of the season to you both.